The woman sitting on the curb was worth 900 million, but she couldn't remember her own name. 40-year-old Kevin Adams has primary reasons, 3 to his name, and only a few hours to feed his dog and himself. Her coat sat wrong on her shoulders, like a borrowed future. His pockets held lint, 3 bills, and hope. Between them, traffic hissed past indifferently. Buddy, the scruffy mutt, pressed against Kevin's calf, wagging despite hunger. 2 strangers, 2 opposite destinies, stalled under a blinking streetlight, each missing something irreplaceable. One had lost memory. The other had lost everything except loyalty. For now, together. Kevin didn't mean to stop. Hunger teaches forward motion, and the shelters close whether you arrive or not. But Buddy halted, ears up, as if a quiet whistle only dogs hear had stitched the woman to the pavement. Kevin crouched a few feet away, palms visible, voice gentle. "Ma'am, you okay?" Her eyes focused and unfocused, like windows fogging then clearing. She touched the edge of her purse, then her temple, searching for a word that wouldn't come. Around them, the city flowed like water around a stone. Buddy scooted closer, chin on her shoe, breathing empathy. "Can you tell me your name?" Kevin asked. Her mouth opened, stayed empty, closed again. No alcohol, no slur, no wildness, just a frightened vacancy, like a light switched on in the wrong room. Kevin glanced at the street, calculating options, paramedics, police, or anonymity. He'd learned each came with prices unpaid people couldn't afford. "I'm Kevin," he tried. "This is Buddy. We won't hurt you." She blinked at the dog's wagging tail, and something in her expression softened as if kindness had a smell she recognized even now. "Water?" he offered. Her nod was small, grateful, breaking. He eased beside her under the streetlight's hum, unscrewed a battered bottle, and passed it carefully. She drank like memory might be floating on the surface. "Where were you going?" he asked. Her gaze drifted across storefronts as if one might call her home. No answer. Buddy gave a single bark, polite, insistent. Kevin heard the message he always did. Don't leave her. He took off his threadbare jacket and draped it over her shoulders despite the cold that immediately bit him. "We'll figure it out," he said. Mostly to Buddy, partly to himself, entirely to her trembling hands. Minutes ticked. Crowds thinned. The street's noise leveled into a steady hush, like ocean heard from far away. Kevin considered the diner that sometimes passed him eggs, the library's heat and silence, the ER's clipboards asking questions neither of them could answer. The woman slid lower on the curb, exhaustion overtaking fear, head tipping against the flickering glass of the shelter's panel. Kevin stayed upright, a practiced sentry. Buddy pressed into his boot, eyes sweeping shadows. For a man with $3, time was costly. Tonight, guarding someone invisible felt richer than chasing a meal by himself. Dawn seeped behind buildings, gray and patient. She woke with a start, then relaxed at the sight of Buddy's ridiculous grin. "Morning," Kevin said softly. "Still foggy?" She searched him, then nodded, apologetic for something not her fault. "Okay," he breathed, standing. "Breakfast," then thinking. He led them to the diner, where the owner pretended not to recognize him on days he was feeling noble. "Anything left?" Kevin asked. The man studied the woman, weighed something private, then slit plates like coins. Eggs, toast, 2 coffees, a water bowl. "Sit," he grunted. Buddy's tail thumped the floor gratefully. She ate carefully, as if food were a test. Toast first, then egg, then sips of coffee that woke something behind her eyes. "You're safe," Kevin said, "meaning for now, meaning with us." The owner pretended to polish a mug while watching their booth in the mirror. When Buddy finished his water, the woman dangled crumbs. The dog accepted them reverently. A laugh, brief, surprised, escaped her. It startled them both. Kevin grinned. "There you are," he said, as if a window had opened. The laugh didn't return, but its echo stayed, a promise that fear didn't own the whole day. Outside, the morning rushed harder. Deliveries clattered, buses sighed. A siren wrote a quick line across the sky. "Hospital?" Kevin tried. She flinched, then shook her head, panic flashing. "Police?" She pressed her lips together, fingers tightening on the purse, the way people do when everything private threatens to spill. "Okay," he said. Library. Libraries had given him warmth, outlets, quiet corners, the privacy of pages. They also carried answers without judgment. He bought a day-old muffin with $2 of the dollars, tucked the last one deep, and led them toward the glass that always held heat and mercy. They found a table with a tired plant and a view of sidewalks unfurling. Kevin asked the librarian for help without telling the story. Pity was dangerous, but compassion was currency. A patient woman showed him large print picture books, maps of neighborhoods, a city directory, and a computer he could use without a card. The woman paged through a glossy architecture book, pausing at a mansion with white columns. Something in her breath changed quicker, lighter. She tapped the photo, whispered a syllable that slid away like a fish. "Home?" Kevin ventured. She nodded once, eyes filling without spilling. Kevin searched public records for estates, columns, foundations. The city offered hundreds of doors. He tried the obituary pages, charity galas, board rosters, names with photographs that felt like they belonged to her cheekbones and that careful mouth. Nothing landed. Buddy slept beneath the table, twitching through dreams, occasionally sighing like a human. The woman traced the edges of the house's photo the way lost people trace routes back to themselves. "We'll keep trying," Kevin said. "One clue beats none." The librarian slipped a granola bar onto the table and walked away quickly, pretending to reshelve courage. By noon, the library's hum deepened. Students arrived, construction workers on break, toddlers holding foam dinosaurs. The woman startled at a child's shriek, then smiled despite herself. Kevin saw the softness and imagined who she'd been. Decisive, kind, the sort of person who read contracts slowly and holiday cards twice. He pulled up maps of the historic district. Columns, columns, columns. Architecture was a choir here. Buddy woke, stretched, and thunked his tail under the table, impatient. "You're right," Kevin murmured. "Air." Outside, the sky had brightened into a possibility he didn't trust yet, but wanted to. They walked past boutiques and tired brick, letting memory hunt without pressure. The woman paused at a florist's window where lilies stood like careful punctuation. She exhaled, temples pulsing under her fingers, then moved on. At a corner, a black SUV slowed. The driver's gaze lingered clinical, measuring then slid away. Kevin's neck prickled. He shifted to place himself between the woman and the street, instinct old as the first night he learned sidewalks had rules. Buddy mirrored him like a shadow with pause. "Keep walking," Kevin said cheerfully, like nothing had shifted. Sometimes survival was a tone, not a plan. Back at the bus stop, the woman's purse strap creaked, leather remembering better days. She opened it finally, as if permission had arrived. Inside, a lipstick, a small notebook, a pen heavy enough to be expensive, and a key fob without branding. No wallet, no phone. The notebook held only a line. By Lily's. Kevin frowned at the florist's window behind them. Okay, he said. Lily's point to a person who notices fragrance before price. He tried a joke and failed. Buddy investigated the curb diligently, pretending to find clues. The woman studied the fob like it might say her name aloud. Kevin took the notebook gently, turned it, held it against the bus shelter's plexiglass where light could paint letters clearer. On the back cover, embossed so softly you could miss it, a monogram curled. A.M.W. Initials. Kevin murmured. We're getting warmer. The woman covered her mouth, as if shame for forgetting something so simple might swallow her. Hey, he said softly. Brains trip breakers when storms hit. That's not weakness. That's wiring. Buddy leaned his weight into her calf until she steadied. Somewhere down the block, the black SUV appeared again, idled, then turned away. Kevin memorized a dented rim. They returned to the library, initials like a compass. On the public computer, Kevin searched board members, donors, architecture with columns, and names with those letters. Articles bloomed. Whitlow Foundation announces citywide literacy grant. Photo. A woman at a podium, Lily's behind her, face familiar in shape if not in memory. The caption read, Amelia M. Whitlow, CEO of Whitlow Holdings. Net worth estimates played roulette across sites. One number, 900, 0, 0, punched through him like a cold wind. He looked at her, then the screen, then her again. She stared at the image, as if it were a window into fog. Amelia? He tried gently. The name hovered between them like a bridge. Her breath hitched, her fingers tightened around the chair. A flicker, then a flinch, recognition and fear arriving together. He closed the tab halfway, blocking the number, leaving the face. People don't need fortunes to find themselves. They need familiarity. Buddy placed his paws on Kevin's knee, grounding the moment. We go slow, Kevin said. A name is a beginning, not a cage. The librarian, sensing a storm tasting electricity, offered a private study room where walls could hold whatever came loose next. Inside the little room, the city's roar softened into carpeted hush. Kevin printed the article, slid it across carefully. Do you want me to read it, or do you want quiet? She pointed to the paper, then placed a hand on her heart. He nodded, read only the softest parts. Books donated, scholarships granted, a literacy festival with lilies everywhere in the photos. With each detail, her shoulders dropped a millimeter. Tears threatened, didn't fall. You're good, he whispered, meaning generous, meaning complicated, meaning human. Buddy sighed on the linoleum, satisfied that the pack was together and moving. What now? Kevin asked the air, not expecting an answer. The obvious choices, hospital, police, looked different when a name like that lit the room. Safety meant discretion. Predators hunted headlines. We get you somewhere quiet, he said finally. Somewhere no one asks questions with microphones. He thought of the only quiet he trusted. The public park where benches faced trees, where an older groundskeeper allowed him to sit late if he promised to leave things cleaner than found. Follow me. She nodded, trusting the man with $3 and a dog because he had stayed when everyone else walked past. They took side streets, letting the SUV, real or imagined, lose their scent. At the park, sunlight dappled through leaves like blessing. The groundskeeper, Clarence, lifted a hand from his rake. "Kev," he called, "you bring company or trouble?" "Both," Kevin answered. "Honest." Clarence glanced at the woman, then Buddy, then the sky. "Bench 3, best shade." I saw nothing. Kindness arranged itself like furniture. They sat. Burrs argued politely. Buddy flopped dramatically, tongue out, happy to be somewhere grass-beat concrete. The woman closed her eyes, not in fear this time, but in rest, the kind that stitches torn hours together. Kevin counted his coins. 1 crumpled dollar, 2 quarters, 3 dimes, a nickel, enough for dog food if rationed like prayer. "Buddy eats first," he told the universe, which already knew. He sent a message through the groundkeeper's kindness. "Can you watch her 5 minutes?" Clarence nodded, adjusting his rake into a scepter of silence. Kevin jogged to the corner store, bought a small can with a dent discount, and returned breathless, triumphant. Buddy wolfed half, then, astonishingly, stepped back so Kevin could share crackers with the woman. A pack is a church with rules written in hunger and love. As afternoon leaned toward evening, the park's shadows lengthened into soft arrows pointing homeward for people who had one. Kevin knew the library would close, shelters would fill, and the city would grow teeth again after dark. He needed a plan before the street turned feral. "We have 2 options," he said quietly. "We go to a hospital that treats people kindly, or we try to reach someone trustworthy from your world without lighting it on fire." She touched the initials on the notebook, then pointed at the photo again. "Family?" he asked. The word made her flinch deeply. "Okay," he soothed. "Not family. Someone else." Often the right ally wasn't blood, but decency with keys. He scanned the article's byline, then the Foundation's public contact page names listed with discretion. One stood out. Harriet Cole, Executive Director. In her photo, age and competence made a reassuring team. If anyone can help without noise, it's the woman who builds the quiet behind your generosity, he said. The woman Amelia maybe nodded cautiously. Kevin borrowed Clarence's flip phone, dialed the office number, and left a message in the softest voice he owned. "I found someone important. Please call back soon." Dusk threaded gold through trees as they waited. Buddy pressed against Amelia's sneakers like a heater with a heartbeat. Kevin rehearsed what he'd say if men in suits arrived, if microphones appeared, if the past came running faster than courage. The phone buzzed. He jumped. "This is Harriet," a calm voice said. He explained carefully, never saying the curb, never saying 900 million, saying only confused, safe, with me, please come alone. Silence then. Where? He gave directions that only people who paid attention would understand. 20 minutes, she said. He exhaled like he'd been underwater all day. 20 minutes in fear years feels like forever. Kevin counted dog breaths, traced cracks in the path, memorized birds he'd never name. When a modest sedan pulled up, a woman stepped out, who matched the photograph exactly sensible shoes, eyes that could hold other people's panic without drowning. She approached slowly, palms open, as if greeting a skittish foal. "Amelia?" she murmured. The woman on the bench didn't answer, but didn't recoil. Harriet crouched, tears shining, discipline holding. "We've been looking everywhere," she whispered. You're safe now. Kevin watched, relief and ache wrestling in his ribs. Buddy wagged, welcoming another to the pack. Harriet turned to Kevin. Thank you, she said. Not as charity, but as contract. I'll take her to a physician we trust and keep her out of sight. May I contact you tomorrow? Kevin nodded, surprised by the invitation back into a life he didn't share. One more thing, he said, swallowing pride. If you can, see she eats. And the dog eats too. Harriet smiled through wet eyes. Both, I promise. She helped Amelia to the car. The woman looked back once, as if to memorize the man and dog who'd stood guard when her name went missing. Then they were gone. Harriet helped Amelia into the car, and Kevin stood in the park, his jacket too thin for the night chill, but his resolve steady. Buddy pressed against his leg, sensing the weight of what had just happened. For the first time in years, Kevin felt that his existence mattered, not because of money or possessions, but because he had been present when no one else was. Yet even as the taillights disappeared into the distance, he wondered if their paths would ever cross again, or if he had simply been a nameless guardian in her forgotten night. That evening, Kevin and Buddy wandered the streets until they found an alley behind a bakery where the air still carried warmth from the ovens. The owner had long since left, but Kevin knew from experience that the bins held bread too stale for customers, but still good enough for survival. He broke a loaf in half, feeding Buddy first, then chewing on the hard crusts himself. His stomach complained, but he felt a strange fullness that bread alone couldn't explain. The image of Amelia's eyes, confused yet grateful, stayed with him, a spark in the fog of his wandering life. Days passed. Kevin returned to his routine, securing meals, finding dry spots, guarding Buddy from dangers both seen and unseen. Yet something had shifted. People who once blended into the blur of the city now carried faces he studied carefully. What if they too were missing something they couldn't name? One afternoon, as Buddy chased pigeons near the library steps, Kevin noticed the sedan again. Harriet stepped out, her gaze sweeping the street until it found him. Kevin, she called gently. He straightened, unsure if this was good news or a storm arriving. Buddy barked once, tail wagging cautiously. Harriet approached with a mixture of exhaustion and relief. She remembers more, Harriet explained. Pieces of her life, enough to know who she can trust, and she asked for you. Kevin blinked, stunned. Me? Harriet nodded. She said there was a man who stayed when the world kept walking. She wants to see him again. The words sank into Kevin like water into parched soil. He had been forgotten by so many employers, neighbors, even family. But Amelia remembered. For Buddy, it was simpler. He wagged his tail furiously, as if he had known all along this moment would return. Kevin followed Harriet to a quiet house on the edge of the city. The building wasn't grand like the mansion in the article, but it was private, hidden, a place where Amelia could recover away from curious eyes. When Kevin entered, Buddy trotting ahead, Amelia sat near the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket that looked too fine for the humble room. Her eyes lifted and recognition sparked. Kevin, she whispered, as if naming him anchored her. Buddy bounded over, resting his head on her lap. She laughed, a sound fragile but real, and stroked his fur. I remember kindness, she said. They spoke softly for hours. Amelia confessed fragments her foundation work, her love for lilies, the unbearable pressure of wealth. Kevin shared scraps of his life, not in self-pity, but honesty. He told her about Buddy, how the dog had kept him alive on nights when despair whispered too loudly. Amelia listened as if every word was worth storing. For the first time, Kevin's story wasn't brushed aside as the ramblings of a homeless man, but honored as survival, as proof of resilience. When silence came, it wasn't heavy. It was the peace of two people no longer entirely alone. Over the following weeks, Kevin visited often. Harriet arranged it discreetly, aware that Amelia's recovery depended not just on doctors, but on human connection. Kevin would bring small gifts, smooth stones from the park, a sketch he had made on scrap paper, even half of a sandwich he had saved. Amelia treasured each one as if it were gold. She, in turn, shared books, letting him read aloud while she closed her eyes, her memory slowly stitching itself back together. Buddy became the bridge between them, curling at their feet, a reminder that loyalty needed no explanation. But not everyone was pleased with Amelia's recovery. Rumors spread in the business world that she had vanished, leaving Whitlow Holdings vulnerable. Associates whispered, opportunists circled, and one evening Harriet warned Kevin to be careful. If they discover where she is, they'll use her condition against her, Harriet said grimly. Kevin frowned. Then I'll stay nearby. Watch quietly. Buddy and I know how to go unseen. Harriet studied him, recognizing in his weary eyes the determination of a man who had lost much, but refused to lose what little he had left. She trusts you, Harriet said. So do I. That trust was tested sooner than expected. One rainy night, Kevin noticed a black SUV idling across from the house. Its headlights cut briefly through the mist before switching off. Buddy growled low, hackles raised. Kevin's instincts sharpened. He had seen that same vehicle before. Without hesitation, he positioned himself near the fence, blending into shadows. Hours dragged, the rain soaking his jacket, but he didn't move. When at last a man stepped from the SUV, foam pressed to his ear, Kevin whistled softly. Buddy barked a warning sharp enough to scatter the intruder back inside the vehicle. The SUV fled. The next morning, Amelia found Kevin asleep on the porch. Buddy curled against him. His clothes were drenched, but his grip on Buddy's collar was firm even in sleep. You stayed, Amelia said softly when he woke. Kevin rubbed his eyes, embarrassed. Didn't seem right to leave. Her hand brushed his sleeve gently. You protect me like no one else has. Kevin shrugged, unused to praise. You'd do the same if our places were switched. She studied him, tears brimming. I'm not sure I would have known how, but you chose to stay when you had nothing to gain. The bond deepened. What began as gratitude grew into companionship, and from companionship into something neither dared name. Kevin still walked the city streets by day, but now he carried purpose, returning each evening to Amelia and Buddy. He fixed small things around the house, squeaky hinges, loose steps, skills learned from a life of making do. Amelia laughed more often, her memory strengthening with each shared moment. For Kevin, laughter was the rarest gift, proof that even lives cracked open by loss could hold music again. For Buddy, it was simple. His pack had grown, and he was content. As winter crept in, Harriet raised a question neither had voiced. What happens when the world notices Amelia Whitlow again? When reporters, investors, and enemies come knocking? Kevin fell silent, staring at the fireplace. Amelia reached for his hand. Then I want them to see the truth, she said firmly. That I wasn't saved by wealth, or power, or headlines. I was saved by a man with $3 and a loyal dog, and I won't hide that story. Kevin squeezed her hand gently, afraid and proud all at once. Buddy wagged his tail, as if sealing the vow. The world eventually did notice. Photographers snapped blurry images, articles speculated, and soon Amelia stood before cameras, her memory restored enough to reclaim her life. But she didn't stand alone. At her side, not behind her, was Kevin and Buddy, tail wagging like a banner of loyalty. Amelia spoke calmly, announcing her return to the Foundation's work, but she also told the story of a night on the curb, a dog's bark, and a man who stayed. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, not expecting such honesty. Yet, the truth settled deep, undeniable. Wealth meant nothing without compassion. When the conference ended, Kevin tried to slip away, uncomfortable with the tension, but Amelia stopped him, her hand firm on his arm. "You belong here," she whispered. "With us," Harriet smiled knowingly, and Buddy barked once, as if seconding the motion. For Kevin, the journey from 3 crumpled dollars to this moment was almost too much to grasp. But as Amelia leaned closer, her eyes steady, he understood. He had never been invisible. Not to her, not to Buddy, and not anymore to himself.